This is Keep On Cooking, a podcast dedicated to plant-based cookbooks, created, produced, and hosted by a cookbook lover for cookbook lovers. This podcast features interviews with the authors themselves, giving you a behind-the-scenes look at the stories behind the recipes. Here to bring you your weekly dose of culinary inspiration. So grab a cookbook and keep on cooking. I'm Dustin Harder, and this is Keep On Cooking. Hello, and welcome to Keep On Cooking, the only podcast dedicated to plant-based cookbooks. I'm your host, Dustin Harder, and if life gives you lemons, squeeze them over a kale salad and pretend you're thriving. Joining me at the top of the show today is the one and only Mr. Rossetti. Hey, stud. How you doing?
How you doing, stud?
Tell me about it,
Tell me
stud.
about it, stud. I was trying to think of exactly what you said.
Grease, baby.
Tell me
Olivia
about it,
Newton-John,
stud.
Sandy.
With a cigarette like she's ever smoked.
Ever smoked. That's
Like,
probably
please.
the only time. The 3 takes they did for that, and then she stomped it
She's
out
like-
on the ground. Oh, R.I.P. Olivia Newton-John.
R.I.P.
Well, listen, everybody, we have a fabulous return guest this
Ah.
week. Speaking of fabulous females,
Mm,
I think she is the Keep On Cooking MVP.
truly.
It's the one and only Nava Atlas making a return to chat about the re-release of her fabulous book, Vegan Soups and Stews for All Seasons. We genuinely adore Nava so much, and it was great to have her back and chat. But before we get into that interview, David, what's coming up?
What's coming up? I feel like we've got like 10 jingles that we could do for our little sections.
I mean,
always. So we're going to look back a couple weeks for this. The book came out on March 11th. Feel Good Kitchen, 80 Plant-Based Recipes to Boost Your Mood and Nourish Your Brain by Amy Lanza. These delicious, nutritionist-approved recipes designed for a healthy brain and happy mind are guaranteed to make you feel good inside and out.
Eating for a healthy brain is all about focusing on key whole foods that are seen to increase brain function and improve memory loss and focus. Start the day right with brain food granola or matcha pistachio creamy oats. For lunch, try avocado, strawberry, and chickpea salad or nutty orange slaw with smoky walnuts. End the day with creamy arrabbiata beans or sesame crusted tofu noodle salad with satay sauce. Food can be a huge factor in maintaining our mental health and a happy mind.
Mhm.
The gut and brain are connected via the happy hormone serotonin, and there are many foods that nourish that link.
So boost your brain health and your happy hormones with these 80 joyful plant-based recipes from Feel Good Kitchen by Amy Lanza. Available now everywhere books are sold. Well, and hey, there's no reason not to know something.
That's right. And this week's No Reason Not to Know Something, we asked the internet, when was soup created?
When was it created? Well, it's no big surprise that soup is one of the oldest forms of prepared food, dating back to around 20,000 BCE. Archaeologists have found evidence of ancient soup making in China, where pots with scorch marks suggest that people boiled ingredients over fires.
Early soups likely consisted of water, vegetables, and whatever meat was available. As cooking techniques evolved, so did the variety of soups across different cultures. It's safe to say soup has been comforting humans for thousands of years. So, David, what is your favorite soup?
A little sidebar. I do remember soup was a big thing at medieval times. Did you go to medieval times?
I did, but I don't remember soup. I remember the big turkey thing. I went when I was in high school.
Well, but the soup had like a handle, like they didn't give you any silverware.
Oh,
'cause
like the
they
bowl.
didn't have any.
The bowl
Yeah.
had a handle and you
Yeah.
just slurped out of it, right? Though I venture to say in medieval times, the bowls probably didn't have a handle. You just picked that thing up and slurped.
Well, probably, but if it was too hot, I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's a reason for that, but they didn't give you any silverware, so you're like, what am I doing?
So was your favorite soup the medieval times soup?
Yes.
That's
No.
what jogged this memory.
No. We were talking about the history, and I was like, oh, I remember medieval times.
When did you go? Just
I mean,
curiosity.
high school. Like,
yeah,
it was
high
like
school.
a
Same,
group
same.
trip.
Yeah.
I would say I'm a big fan of just a nice tomato soup.
Oh.
And your vegan broccoli cheddar is really delicious.
Thank you. It is.
Yeah.
Um,
But really, I really am like a soup. I do like
I-
any soup.
I
What's yours?
love soup. I will never Rarely, I would say, I will order it at a restaurant though.
Same here.
Yeah, but
But like I do
at
love it.
home I love
Yeah.
it. And I remember I did a little long time ago on Instagram. I did like a Super Sunday for like 10 weeks in a row where like I literally just went into the fridge and I pulled
Oh
out
yeah.
whatever
Mm-hmm.
ingredients. This is when there was a little thing called IGTV that maybe lasted like a
Mm.
year. And I did a super soup series. Anyways, my favorite soup. Well, I also wanted to talk about. I was when you said tomato, I thought about our dear sweet friend Steven. We've been watching RuPaul with our friends Peter and Steven and on Sunday nights. And Steven just texted and said he's making like a white bean tomato soup on Sunday night. Very excited. And he's gonna make us the adult grilled cheese from Big Vegan, what is it? Big Vegan Flavor. The book's right behind me. Big Vegan Flavor by Nisha Vora. She was on the podcast. Love her, and he got the book and he's going to make the adult grilled cheese in there, which has chili
Oh.
crisp in it. How
Oh.
exciting is that with a white bean tomato soup?
That sounds delicious.
Tomato soup. But anyways, we're on a soup tangent. Easy to do because soup is delicious. My absolute hands down favorite soup is, well, it was the potato soup from Bennigan's.
Mm.
And then, of course, I couldn't have it because there's bacon in it. And I'm sure they probably use chicken stock. But I veganized it and I put it in my book, Epic Vegan. And it's called the loaded baked potato soup. And that, I just love
That
it.
is very good.
With the bacon bits in it and the scallions and a little bit of cheese. So it's literally like a loaded. I mean, potato soup in general is probably my favorite, but this one just goes as an extra step further, having like all the loaded baked potato stuff in it.
Have we
So
talked
good.
about this? What do you think about like cold soup, like gazpacho?
I mean, I think Nava and I get into it a little bit. I'm not the biggest fan of it,
Sure.
but when you and I were on vacation last year in Puerto Vallarta and I ordered it and it came to the table because we were or to the pool actually, I was like, oh, this is kind of lovely. So it was lovely.
Refreshing.
Yeah, I've had it
certain
and liked
settings,
it, but I don't necessarily like
Right.
go to it.
You know, like, you know, it would be great right now.
Yeah.
Gazpacho.
Yeah. Well, here to talk all about the soups and stews with the book Vegan Soups and Stews for All Seasons, Nava Atlas is here. This classic vegan soup cookbook is back better than ever, now with 20 new recipes and dozens of gorgeous full color photos. Best-selling author Nava Atlas presents the 5th and ultimate edition of Vegan Soups and Stews for All Seasons. The book's staying power is a testament to the universal love of soups.
Truly. Everyone loves soups.
I mean, I just thought you and I were going to talk about it for like, I could have, like, for
We
like,
could have.
yeah, but anyway.
And I'm surprised you have not made a stews for all seasons. There's not a Grease 2 reference. Is this stews for all seasons?
That's not the melody. Be your stew for all seasons.
There we go.
Yep.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a peripheral fan of Grease 2. But anyway, from hearty, warming stews to fruity dessert soups, Nava ladles out more than 120 delectable recipes. Each chapter highlights the best produce available in its season, which I think this is really cool. Fall celebrates the harvest. Winter focuses on comfort. Spring lifts the palate. And summer is all about freshness. That said, with seasonality having stretched far beyond what it was not long ago, cooks can ignore the calendar and choose whichever soup or stew will satisfy the craving of the moment.
And we're going to link a couple of the soups. They're going to be on the blog, Keep On Cooking, and they're going to be linked below. I think we're putting up a white bean a butternut miso soup and something else. I'm sorry. I wish I they're ready to go. We got to put them on the blog, but they'll be there. There'll be links. Go check it out. Links if you want to have a couple free recipes. And of course, as I'm mentioning that, please go follow Keep On Cooking Pod on Instagram and go check out the website, keeponcooking.com, where we've got recipes from the authors, recipes from me, lots of great stuff. And hey, while we're plugging things and while you're at it, if you want to leave a review for this podcast, I would love you forever. But listen, back to Nava. Nava Atlas is the author of many vegetarian and vegan cookbooks, including 5-ingredient vegan plant-powered protein, Wild About Greens, Vegan Holiday Kitchen, and others. Her first book, Vegetariana, considered a classic, was revised and published in the 4th edition in 2021. You can visit her vegan food and lifestyle site at theveganatlas.com.
And in addition to cookbooks, Nava produces visual nonfiction books, notably Secret Recipes for the Modern Wife and The Literary Lady's Guide to the Writing Life. Its companion website, A Literary Lady's Guide, explores the lives and literature of classic women authors.
So cool. Nava's so cool.
She is
She
the
is
coolest.
also an active fine artist specializing in limited edition artist books and text driven objects. Her work is shown and collected by museums and universities across the US. Now, whether you're looking for a colorful global stew, a stew for all seasons, one might say, or a refreshing cold elixir, there's something for every soup lover in the pages of this fabulous book, Vegan Soups and Stews for All Seasons. Here she is to tell us why this book is a must have for every plant forward kitchen. It's Nava Atlas. She is an absolute icon in the vegan cookbook landscape, and it is nothing short of an honor and a pleasure to have her return to the Keep On Cooking podcast. Please welcome Nava Atlas. How you doing?
Hi, it's so nice to be here with you again.
I'm so happy you're here, and we're going to jump into your icebreaker question. So, what's a childhood snack that you still love?
That is a really interesting question. And I thought about this because, Dustin, my childhood was a long time ago, and we didn't have the things we had today. So I'm going to give you an equivalent. I really liked those cheese puffs. And then they're still around. I'm
Like
not going to,
the little balls, or like the cheese?
more
They're
like
they're longer, like the little yeah.
kind of
The
like
cheese puffs. Yeah.
rainbow
Yep.
shaped.
Yep.
So a friend of mine and I would just laugh uproariously at how orange our fingers would become, which also means there was a lot of dye in them. So I would say the modern equivalent would be hippies. Hippies, that
Oh,
brand.
the
Yeah,
yeah. Yep.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But and before the program, I
Those
kind
are
of
delicious.
they are, and I looked at the ingredients on both, and the other kind. There's I think a few brands. There are things that we really just don't want to eat.
Sure.
And with hippies, the first ingredient is chickpea flour, and I think there's rice flour, and then there's pea protein. So what
Mhm.
could be bad? They have
Yeah.
that vibe, that
Yeah.
crunchy, almost cheesy vibe.
Yeah.
So that's what I would choose. It does give me a little bit of that nostalgia too.
Yeah. I think theirs might be like a white cheddar flavor, I think.
They do
Yeah.
have the white
Yep.
cheddar
But
flavor.
it's vegan, everybody. Listeners,
Yes,
it
it
is
is
vegan.
vegan,
Yeah,
and they
yeah,
give,
yeah.
I think they have some spicier ones. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The my I couldn't think of like a well, I guess a childhood snack that I love that I can't eat anymore because it's not vegan is a Pop-Tart. I loved a Pop-Tart. I just loved a Pop-Tart when I was a kid.
Oh, right, they're not vegan. I
Yeah.
used to like those. I think I remember when I was a vegetarian. Too bad
Mm-hmm.
they don't have a vegan. There must be a vegan brand of those,
There
but
is a brand, I can't remember what it's called, and I think I only saw it at Target. But so and there's, of course, all of us wonderful vegan recipe developers in the world. Of course, there's some recipes for Pop Tarts, and I've made them. I think Lauren Toyota has one in her Hot for Food, her first cookbook that I made. But there's nothing like just being able to buy yourself a Pop Tart and have a little
right,
Pop Tart snack,
right.
you
I
know?
feel like making it at home would be a little bit on the complicated side and
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
just right.
a little
But
bit of labor, yeah.
this is not, the subject of our talk tonight, but I have to say, I just developed such an addictive snack that is so good for us and so high in protein.
Ooh, no, this is
Oh my
spot
gosh.
on with our conversation. Tell me,
So
please.
a cup and a half of pepitas, toasted
Uh-huh.
sunflower,
Yeah.
sorry, pumpkin seeds. It could be salted or unsalted. I think I've made them with tamari pepitas. Then a half a cup of hemp seeds,
Great.
a third of a cup of maple syrup, a teaspoon of vanilla, and that's like the basic ones. You can stop right there. Uh, last couple times I put in maybe a third of a cup of chocolate mini chips.
Uh-huh.
Spread them on a parchment on a baking sheet and bake it for 20 minutes at 325. Oh yeah, I sprinkled some coarse salt on top.
Yeah.
It is so addictive. So and then when it comes out of the oven, you have to let it cool. It's like a
Let it
burrito.
set then. It's like, okay, yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, and it's such a good snack, and it's just almost pure protein.
I love that.
Yeah,
Delicious. Ooh, I'll have to try that. So
yeah.
good. Have you seen those barks where people have done like a date base with them? Like they smash dates down and they put like a nut butter over it and then chocolate and then they freeze it all?
Oh no, I haven't seen those.
Someone did, a friend of mine did that for a Christmas party this year, and I'd been seeing them online, and she did it, and it was pretty tasty. You're getting that delicious date and then a little nut butter, a little chocolate. So these tips and ways to sort of make bark or brittle easier, people all these years are like, oh, it's so hard. Actually, those are like some of the
Oh my
nicest, easiest things to make. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this one is a prep. If you it's 10 minutes,
Yeah.
you've been moving very slowly.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Everybody has loved it. I took it to a gathering and she's, right away, I need this recipe. So, and it's
But
really, there's nothing bad in it.
your next book. There you go. You have to put it in there.
Actually, I do have 2 more books coming out soon.
Nice.
They're not cookbooks. I'll tell you
Okay.
about
Tell
those.
us about them though. What do you got coming out?
This September or sometime this fall, it's called Inspired by Cats, Writers and Their Feline Muses. And I collaborated. Are you a cat dad?
Yes. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Oh,
I've got I don't know if I can get this up over my sleeve, but this is
yeah.
my first cat.
Oh my.
Muzzy, I just got this tattoo this last year. He's passed, but then we have Bean Louise now. So yes, I'm a cat dad.
Oh, that's so great. So I'll make sure to send you this book.
Oh, I'd
I'm
love it.
collaborating with Bob Eckstein. I was the writer and he was the illustrator. Now I'm
Okay.
also an illustrator, but he's also known and he used to be a New Yorker cartoonist. And so we chose 60 authors, dead and living, and the stories of their cats and how their cats inspired them. So it was really very interesting
Oh,
to
that's
research into.
cool.
And then the following year, I'm writing a history of banned and censored books by women authors.
Wow.
Yeah,
Amazing.
that's been really, and that's kind of ties in with my literary ladies guide and one of my
Yep.
books, literary ladies guide to the writing life. So I have many different ways of being a nerd in my life, they're all fun.
Oh, it's why we love you so much. It's why we love you so much. And listeners, you've heard from our cherished guest here a couple times on the podcast already. You can check out episode 17, where we cover more details about Nava's background, including all of these wonderful things that she nerds out about. And we do a deep dive into her book, Vegan on a Budget, on that episode. And in episode 29, she comes back to chat about her fabulous book, Plant Powered Protein, from which I still make the teriyaki sauce all the time. And then I do an episode of my own where I peel through Nava's celebrated cookbook, Vegan Holiday Kitchen, from which I made the chocolate citrus bundt cake this year for Christmas. My family loved it. It was a big hit. And today we are here to talk about vegan soups and stews for all seasons. So, Nava, this is the 5th edition of this book. It was first published in 1992 and has been growing and evolving ever since. What's new about this edition?
Well, the photographs are new. It was never been so lushly photographed. A lot of the photographs are by Hannah Kaminsky, who I'm sure you know who she
Yeah.
is. She's wonderful in her own right, a cookbook author and blogger and all kinds of things. And she is, this will date me a little bit, but she's my kid's age. But we were really thick as thieves, and we've often joked that we share a part of our brain together because I can just send her a recipe and she will interpret it the way I imagined it to be. So yeah, this is the first time I'm really happy with how the book looks. It was kind of dull in all its editions, and I really thank my readers and everybody for supporting the book, even as it went through its kind of ugly sister phases.
Sure. Sure.
Now it really, and this is a really special book for me because my daughter did the interior design and the cover.
Nice.
She's a wonderful designer, and the daughter who is Hannah Kaminsky's age. And she didn't photograph each and every recipe, but most of them. And it really does. It's funny because even I, as the writer of these recipes, I tend to gravitate towards the ones with the
Sure.
photos.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
you have to
I
remind
get that.
yourself the other ones are really good too.
Yeah.
So we give them equal love.
Yeah. I love that. And I know, listeners, I know that you love having photos with your recipes. So it's certainly on this new edition of this. What a great addition to this edition to have those photos. That's so nice. And Hannah really does great work, and it's proof positive in your other books as well. And you start the book off talking about the love you have for soups and stews, but tell us now, why do you love soups and stews so much?
Oh, that's such a great question. And I feel like it's something when you have a bowl of soup, it's so nurturing and so healing and so soothing. I don't know that I've ever met anybody in my life who says, "Oh, I don't like soup," because
Hmm.
You can't say that. They're also so different. The other reason why I love it is because as a cook and other cooks, it's so forgiving. Like sometimes I'll really feel like having a soup and I'll say, "Oh, but I don't have such and such." Okay, so I'll just swap in
Hmm.
whatever I do have, and it doesn't ruin it. It doesn't compromise the flavor. It's just like I said, it's just very, very forgiving. And, who isn't, especially in the winter, who isn't comforted by a bowl of soup?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're having this conversation at the end of January now, and as I was looking over this, taking some notes, I was like, "Well, I just wanna make everything. I just want soups on rotation constantly." But I am and I think I've had this question on your rapid fire before. Are you just a soups in the winter kinda time, or do you like soups all year long?
Well, this book is called Vegan Soups for All Seasons, so I do like them all year round. And
Yep.
in the summer, so actually, to be fair, there are people who kind of don't get the cold soup vibe, and that's okay. I do really like cold soups. I find them very refreshing. And I sometimes like fruit soups or gazpacho,
Mhm.
but yeah, all year round.
Yep,
For the
absolutely.
spring are the kind of lighter soups for the palate with more greens. And the fall for me really means the harvest, where summer segues into the colder season and you have corn and tomatoes and squashes kind of overlapping. So each season has its own charms. But that being said, produce has really stretched and overlapped a lot more than it used to be. Like, for example,
Mhm.
I used to never be able to get asparagus other than really in the spring, and now I'm seeing
Sure.
asparagus all year round. In a way, it makes it a little bit less special, but it's
Mhm.
there, might as well use it.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I hear that. Well, and when you're talking about how versatile it is too, in the beginning of the book, you get into some housekeeping with cooking notes on equipment and freezing soups and textures and consistencies. And then you cover ingredients with scratch made beans versus canned beans, plant milks, vegan cheese, vegan sour cream, and yogurts, oils, vegan butter, and seasoning blends. And those are all ways when we're talking about, how soup is versatile. When you're just even giving that fundamental information, that's a great way for people to start to understand, oh, well, I don't have this thing, so maybe I can like swap out that thing for this thing. It just really lays a nice base for people getting into it. You also enlighten the home cook about some soup starters. So it's a myth that the absence of meat broth means a lackluster flavor for soup, right? So how do we start our soups off with a surefire win for flavor in the end?
That's a question I get asked a lot, whether it's a vegan program or a non-vegan. And, I love it when I can preach to the non-converted, and people are a
Yeah.
lot more open to it than they ever have been. But for other than summer soups, the standard starter is a nice onion and garlic sauté. Also,
Mhm.
maybe not 100% of the time, but much of the time. That gives a really nice base of flavor. And then, like you said, I give ways to boost seasonings with I really like I mean, people don't believe this, but I am a little bit on the lazy side as a cook. I do a lot of other things, so I don't have a cooking-related job. I don't teach cooking. I'm not in the kitchen all day, so I feel like I've always tried to keep it real for people who
Mhm.
work during the day and then have to come home and make something. Now, that being said, I think, Sundays are a really good day to make a big pot of soup because you don't wanna come home at 6 and then do all the prep, and maybe the soup won't be ready for an hour and a half. But there's certain things that are flavor boosters. So I mentioned the bouillon cubes, and I like to get the kind at the natural food store that don't have additives. Then there are broth bases. I don't use those as much, but I like the herb and spice seasoning mixes, like, Mrs. Dash from the supermarket. There's other brands, or, Spike from the health food store, 'cause
Mhm.
so you don't have to measure and, find a million spices. It's all
Right. Right.
what else? Miso makes a wonderful soup base. Miso soup.
Yeah.
I actually just made one of the soups that doesn't have a photo, and I had to remind myself it's really good, and it's, uh, soba noodles, roasted butternut squash,
Nice.
peas, and a miso soup base. And
Delicious.
it's really good. That's one of the kind of a quicker one. So I use another shortcut, which I love, and I love shortcuts. I'm not ashamed to say it.
Same, same.
Butternut squash, I absolutely love it, but when I see those packages of pre-cut fresh butternut squash, I'm just all in.
Oh, sure.
Because, I love recipes that say, "Peel and dice your butternut squash," and I think, "Okay, I'll go get a chainsaw now."
Yeah, yeah. It's a hefty
Yeah,
task.
it is, but it is so worth it. But, I love those pre-cut fresh butternut
Yeah.
squash packages, so that's what went into the soup, and then pairing that with a kind of the brownish soba noodles
Mm-hmm.
with a miso soup base. Now I try to give every soup a little bit of an interesting base, but honestly, a few seasonings, the bouillon cubes, the onions, the garlic, the salt and pepper, it all comes together.
Yeah.
And also almost all of them are so filled with fresh produce.
Mm-hmm.
That's what creates most of the flavor anyway.
Yeah, and you provide great starters, everyone. In this book, she's got you with an onion and garlic broth, as she mentioned, simple miso broth, and dried shiitake mushroom broth. I can only imagine that one has to be so flavorful. And you also give us some recipes for soup accompaniments like scallion pancakes, which I almost just put the book down and made the other day when I was going. I was like, I don't have time for notes. I want to make these scallion pancakes
So
right now.
easy.
Quick sunflower cheese bread, focaccia bread, and even green chili cornbread, which brings us to our first season, which is fall. Now, do you have, and this is, we're going to talk about the recipes, but I'm curious overall when we're looking at the four seasons, do you have a favorite season for soup, like in terms of ingredients?
Hmm, that's I would say, rather than stretching myself here, I would say I don't think so. I think I really love
Yeah,
them all. It's like asking me, which of your kids do you love the
yeah,
most?
you can find something in all seasons, though, is what
It
you're
is.
saying. You love all seasons equally, and that's good. That's okay.
Yes.
Um, but I do love everybody. This book is split into seasons. So we're really taking advantage of its seasonal ingredients here in a very fun, approachable way. So when we're looking at fall soups, what's something you gravitate towards immediately in the fall from this chapter?
I would say sweet potatoes are a big one, although, oh yeah,
Mm,
sweet potatoes. And this is the Brussels sprouts season is starting, and I think we talked about before where fresh corn is started. It overlaps with the incoming fall vegetables, and this was a little bit of a quandary. Kimchi soup really can be made any time of year, and the ingredients aren't really that fall specific, but it's when the fall winds start coming in and you start feeling a little under the weather. I have really fallen in love with kimchi soup.
nice.
It's very easy, has a long looking ingredient list, but I always say don't be daunted by the ingredient list because everything just gets thrown in.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's a new one. Oh, I forgot to mention before when we were saying what is the upgrade of this one. I believe there are 20 new recipes that weren't in it
Yes.
before. One of which is the kimchi soup, and
Oh,
I've
nice.
so many of these soups over and over. Another fall soup I really love and that we made a lot is called broccoli peanut soup, and it has apple in it.
Oh, delicious.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, well, we're not going to use delicious apples though, but I get the pun.
Is there an apple you recommend? Prefer?
I like the crisp ones. A good, I was going to say, I don't know if that's a brand name or anything, but the Red Delicious apples, they're mushy.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm
any
not a
kind of,
fan.
if it's like Gala or Fuji's, any kind of
Yeah.
like really nice crisp apple, and it's very subtle in the soup, and the soup has a peanut butter base that is just,
I'm sold. I'm
yeah.
sold. Peanut butter base. I'm here for that. You open everybody up here. Open this section up here for everybody with French onion soup. There's cream of white vegetables, New England clam less chowder. So tell me a little more about the New England clam less chowder. What are we using in there?
Oh, yeah, that's one doesn't have a photo, but when I look for substitutes for seafood, which I'm, even before I was vegetarian, I wasn't a big fan of.
Sure.
But in this particular one, I just go for baked tofu. Anything,
Okay, great.
it's very kind of chewy and has a nice flavor already. And this is a very simple soup. And when I say oyster crackers, they're not literally made of oysters, but those little
Right.
crackers. It just gives it a nice New England feel to it. So yeah, and that's a nice fall soup with frozen or fresh corn kernels because you're getting onto that cusp of the
Mm-hmm.
seasons here.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
potatoes,
absolutely.
definitely a comfort soup.
Well, and we've got potato, cheese, and green chili soup, golden potato soup. We've got that mellow sweet potato soup you mentioned, creamy mixed mushroom soup, creamy potato squash soup, curried red lentil soup, kale squash and sweet potato stew. What about stews in here? Now, I love stew. It's I you know, and to me the difference is like stew's got like a bit of a thicker texture, right?
Yeah, I
And
say it's like soup, but less water and more attitude.
yeah, yes, yes. I like that. Yes. And it always feels a little heartier to me than soup as well. And I remember, I grew up with my parents being divorced, and when I would go to my dad's, cooking was not the strong point, and it was always like, the cheap deli meats, Jiffy box prepared items, and Dinty Moore stew. He always had the cans of Dinty Moore stew. So it was always, these quick things. But I do remember the stew because I just had like, it almost felt like the closest to real food when we were with him was the stew, because
Did
like
he
at least
embellish it with fresh vegetables, or was just straight up
nope,
the out of the
nope, nope. So I was looking, but I remember just being like, well, I think I see like a carrot in here, so there's a vegetable in here, But it does bring me still a fond memory for stew because I always felt like it was hearty, and I was very satiated by it. But lots of great stuff in here: sweet and sauerkraut soup, broccoli peanut soup. You already mentioned. Tell me about this chickpea and tahini soup.
taking the kind of classic Middle Eastern flavors that you'd find in hummus and transposing them into a soup. What um,
Mm,
I think that was one of the ones that doesn't have a pictures. What page are you on with
that's
that?
going to be on page 50.
Oh, okay, we're deep into this chapter. Yes, I just kind of imagine what would hummus taste like if it was a soup and I added mushrooms and cabbage and the whole chicken. I didn't puree the whole thing, some of it. And I was going to say one really great tip for people who really love soup and make it often is the immersion blender. That is a game changer, and they're really very inexpensive now, and they're
Mm-hmm.
great. My immersion blender actually came as a set with a mini prep
Oh,
and
nice.
with a wire whisk, and I got it on our favorite big online
Yep.
store.
Yep.
I think it was just really somewhere around the 30 or
Well, and
$35.
they don't take up that much room storage wise either.
Exactly,
So
and
much so that I can almost never find mine when I need it. I'm like, where did I put it again? I don't. I need it
it's
needs to have
very
a regular home, a regular spot.
right.
Yeah, that's a good tip. That's a very good tip. I'm gonna shout out a couple more in this, and then we're gonna move on to winter. We got so there's some stuff in here like garlicky cream of celery soup. So like I wouldn't think of just making a cream of celery soup, but when you say garlicky cream of celery soup, I'm like, ooh, I do kind of want that. Even a carrot and ginger soup, any of your books, everything is always a home run. So when I look at carrot ginger soup and I'm like, oh, that's like a traditional soup, I'm like, but I want Nava's version of it because I know I'm going to be satisfied by it.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say about the carrot ginger soup. I thought myself so clever by using two 1 pound bags of baby carrots because it's a lot of work to peel and cut 2 pounds of carrots. I have to say a caveat now. I think some baby carrot brands have been recalled. So just make sure to do some research before you buy a certain brand.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah. And yeah, the same with the garlic cream of celery. Actually, I have not made for a very long time, and I feel like now that you mention it, I want to make it again soon.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm thinking about the celery that I have in my fridge, and I'm like, well, maybe it's time.
it's a good use
That's
for
the
it.
home for that. Yeah. And this is going to move us into winter. So that's where we're sitting right now. We're sitting pretty in winter. We're talking in January. Lots of fun items in here: minestrone soup, macaroni and cheese soup. Get into that macaroni and cheese soup, Italian pasta and bean soup, Italian mixed vegetable stew, chicken noodle soup, chicken and wild rice soup, celery, potato, and mushroom soup, mixed mushroom barley soup, and parsnip vegetable bisque. So when you're looking at here and you're looking at this lineup of recipes in here, what's sticking out to you as like something you'd want to make right from this book right now? A recipe you love to go
I
to.
actually made this one, the hearty winter root soup just last week. And
Mm.
I was gonna it is a fair amount of work in terms of the cutting, and rutabagas can be very stubborn, but oh my gosh, rutabagas are so delicious. I feel like it's a really underappreciated vegetable, but part of it is because, like butternut squash, it's a little hard to cut.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. But you're
Yeah,
right, it is an underappreciated vegetable. Even I mean, I've had it, I've prepared it from other people's books. I've never actually like gotten into the vibe of like using it often, but when I do, I'm always like, gosh, I need to use this more
it's
often.
really good, so flavorful. It's really on the sweet side.
Mhm.
Even more so
Mhm.
than butternut. And then I made the mixed mushroom barley soup very recently. I actually use this
Mm.
book probably more than I use any of the other. My family loves soups. My daughter really got into making soups. And I have an equivalent story for you about that Dinty Moore stew,
Oh
which
yeah,
is
please.
the chicken noodle soup. So when I was growing up, and again, I tell you, my childhood is a long time ago. I lived in a kind of neighborhood where we could walk home for lunch and then go back to school voluntarily. So my mom, may she rest in peace, was really not a great cook, but she would open up a can of, I guess, Campbell's, either
Sure.
chicken noodle or turkey noodle soup. And, I didn't grow up vegetarian like my kids did. And, I thought it was okay. I wasn't a big eater. I'm
Mhm.
still not a big eater, but, it reminded me of home and my mom, even though she wasn't a great cook. And then later she made a different version of chicken noodle soup, maybe more from scratch. But this is a nostalgia soup.
Sure.
So in this soup, I like to give people a choice of what kind of protein. Some people love the plant-based meaty products, and some people don't love them. So I always offer an alternative. In this one, again, baked tofu. Last week, I made a really good chicken style seitan from scratch, and I
Mm.
think I made the soup and I used that in it.
Love
So,
that.
so yeah, those two right now stick out to me, but another week I could, depending on mood. And like I said, I'm really not a very big eater because I'm not a very big person. I am, if I'm 5 feet tall, that's a lot.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And I almost made the sweet and sour cabbage soup, but
Ooh, that looks
it was
delicious.
missing one important part of it that day. It might have been the potatoes. I felt like they just really needed. So, okay, I'll just wait until I get a few more potatoes.
Sure.
And I say it's a hearty bowlful for a blustery winter day. And that really defines it.
Yeah, yeah. And you've got my nostalgia covered in here with a beefy seitan stew, so that's one
Oh
I
my
can turn
gosh,
to.
yes,
Got
yes.
a taco soup. What's in the taco soup?
The taco sauce was very easy. And oh yeah, I'm there. So to give it a little bit of that meaty flavor texture, I use bulgur, rather than a protein substitute. But I think if somebody wants to keep it gluten-free, they can use quinoa. And so it's like a chili. Basically, it's a traditional chili with see beans and the bulgur and bell peppers. And the way you present it, here, let's show the people who are watching.
So good.
It's
Yeah.
it's so easy. You just line the bowl with tortilla chips, and then you put on top of it what you'd normally put on tacos, which in our case would be the shredded vegan cheese
Hmm.
and some tomatoes and lettuce. And if I were doing this book over again, which I'm not going to do, I would also dollop some sour cream, vegan sour cream on top.
Sure.
That would really be good. Now
Yeah,
you made me want to
delicious.
make this. I haven't made this also for a while. Get so stuck on that, like, a few soups that I love, like the
I mean,
kimchi.
tacos are so satisfying. A taco soup
Yeah.
just sounds so comforting and delicious. And before we move on, a couple many great ones in here to shout out. But just to give some more titles to the listeners here, we got a long simmering black bean soup. We've got the golden curried soup, Spanish garbanzo stew, and then a three bean soup with brown rice, thyme scented tomato rice soup, and a Thai spice sweet potato stew, and hearty barley bean soup. So lots of great stuff when you're looking at winter recipes. Even this miso soup with winter vegetables sounds so yummy and delicious.
I made this fairly recently. It is good.
Yeah.
It's really kind of a little bit of a Japanese vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
Me, I think in the photo that Hannah did, she put some sort of rice mix. And sometimes when I'm making a soup with some grain in it, especially rice, I'll put it on the side
Sure.
because otherwise it'll absorb everything and it'll
Absorbs all the liquid. Yeah.
like a and just a dish. And this way, when you're either reheating it or heating it, heat up the rice, and then you can put a little bit of rice in there, makes it even heartier.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, this moves us into spring, which I feel like is an exciting time seasonally because we're coming out of winter and we're getting into some new stuff coming up ingredient wise. We got spring vegetable soup, lemony spinach orzo soup, spinach chickpea noodle soup, Vietnamese beef noodle soup, tofu and soba noodle soup, Chinese cabbage and tofu soup, mixed mushroom and bok choy soup, Thai flavored vegetable stew. When you're looking ahead at spring right now, Nava, someone just buys this book or they buy it in the spring. When they pull this book out, what's the soup you're going to tell them to make from the spring section first?
Oh, okay. You always are putting me on the spot. Let's see. Let's see. I don't know. I actually like the spinach chickpea noodle soup because it does kind of
Mmm.
cross the seasons and it has
Yeah,
the greens in it, and it's still a lighter soup than the winter soups, although I wouldn't be opposed to making it in the winter. And the lemony spinach orzo soup on the page before has a similar vibe to it as well. Just kind of lighter, lemony. Your
sounds so good.
palate is getting ready for the new season, lighter flavors. And of course, I don't want to ignore the ones that may not have photos. Like here's an asparagus and spinach soup, which is very
Mm.
green, very hearty. I just love greens so much. And then we were talking before about that butternut with soba. And in the spring, we have a puree of asparagus with soba. So
Mm-hmm.
this about soba noodles and soup, they don't absorb the broth quite as
Sure.
aggressively as other noodles do. So it's nice. The soup kind of remains a soup.
Well, and
Um,
you've even got for asparagus too. We got a spicy asparagus and green bean stew, and after that one is a festive beet borscht. Everybody,
Yeah, I really love borscht. It's such a mess to make, but
I
it's
know.
so worth it. I just love that. I think of when it comes to Passover, I of course make the vegan matzo ball soup, which I didn't put in this because it's everywhere online. People have reprinted my matzo ball soup everywhere,
Sure,
and it's
sure.
in the Vegan Holiday Kitchen, as you
Uh huh.
know. But it's part of me sometimes says, instead of that kind of Eastern European base, why don't I make the beet borscht and put matzo balls in there? And I'm never sure if they really go, but they don't not go. They just turn red.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe give it
Hey,
a try sometime. See how you
yeah.
feel.
Yeah, no, I've tried it. And like I said, they kind of turn pink, but
Okay, okay.
it tastes good. Yeah.
Of course they do. There's one that I am looking at here. It's the potato dill soup with green beans. That sounds so yummy.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And that's another one where you can make it in the fall or the winter, but
Sure.
the flavor of the dill,
That's what I'm thinking. Potato dill.
green
Yum.
beans and chopped parsley. They're just really
Mm-hmm.
green, springy flavors. But yeah, that's kind of really homey soup that's so easy to make, and it's always a big hit.
And
And
we're
it's
looking at
yeah, I was gonna say it's also kind of a budgety soup. It's inexpensive.
yeah.
You can stretch it. It's really good.
Well, then just that combination of potato and dill to me is always a winner. Everyone's always very satisfied.
Yeah.
Another asparagus one is the asparagus arborio rice soup in here, and then we got Spanish vegetable stew, country captain stew. What's the country captain stew?
That is kind of like, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, like mulligatawny. It's a East Asian soup, and it has, again, it's has potatoes and another one with apples, and again, I go to my go-to, which is baked tofu, and it
Mm-hmm.
sounds a little weird. It is a stew, and it has raisins in it and a curry flavor. It's unusual, but I like it, and again, this is when Oh, it's an East Indian, it's compared to an East Indian mulligatawny soup.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think it usually has real chicken in it, but of course, we won't go there. So, you could use, like, a chicken plant-based protein product, but or the baked tofu,
Well,
and
and you say, it's unusual, but that's one of the best things about this book is that you've got some traditional offerings in here, and then you've also got some other offerings that might be more expansive for people to explore and learn a little bit more about ingredients. So I love that. And that's going to lead us into summer. We're looking at our summer ingredients here with a cream of pea and cucumber soup. Cool as a cucumber soup. And you said before, some people don't get into the cold soups or the gazpacho. And for the longest time, it was not my thing. I was like, I'm not here for it. But I have had some now that I have truly enjoyed. So I am a bit of a fan now of the gazpacho. So I can get into it a little bit. So I'm excited to see what else we have in here. Got late summer eggplant stew, garden green soup, tangy cold potato spinach soup, cold creamy leek and potato soup, cream of lettuce soup. So what's in the cream of lettuce soup? What's going on there?
cream of oh, there has a base, a nice silky base of either silken tofu or cannellini beans. I
Nice.
like, but then they're interchangeable for me. If you take a one of those packages of silken tofu or drained cannellini beans, either make a really great base for soup. I when we used to belong to a CSA, and I know that I've done this also as a supermarket shopper. You'll buy all this lettuce, and then you get home and say, "Wait a second, I already had so much lettuce at home, so this is a
Sure.
great way to use it up." And then combining it with whatever kind of fresh herbs you want, it's really good. And you mentioned that there are a lot of cold soups in this, but there are some soups that can be served warm or hot, and they really focus on summer produce like this lettuce soup and the garden green soup. So they're real. Even if you serve them warm, they feel very, very light. And one of the things I like about some summer soups is that you don't have to cook them at all.
Right.
Even if you have a good air conditioning unit, you just don't feel like cooking.
Yeah.
And that means that they're ready almost in minutes, like the cucumber soup, or really kind of surprisingly hearty is this cream of pea and cucumber soup at the beginning of
Mm-hmm.
which you put in some coconut milk and cilantro and lime, and really it's just minutes.
Sounds so good.
Your immersion blender, and then you put
Uh-huh.
solids on top for the garnish.
Oh yeah, get that immersion blender out, everybody. We got a cool zucchini carrot soup in here, cold tomato mango coconut soup. See, now that sounds heavenly and something I would definitely get into as a cold soup. Cold tomato mango coconut soup. We got a cold zucchini corn soup, cream of corn and watercress soup, tortilla soup with summer squash, corn puree with sauteed peppers, a creamy avocado soup, and a classic gazpacho. So, what is a classic gazpacho?
The classic gazpacho is the one with the tomatoes, peppers, and cucumber. And then the not so classic gazpacho, which I feel like I've come to prefer, is the watermelon gazpacho. And I
Mm,
adapted this. I didn't make this one up. This was really like a modern classic. And
sure.
I like that combination of the tomatoes and the watermelon in a soup. It's just so refreshing.
Oh yeah, and there's lots of when you get towards the end of this too. When you're speaking of refreshing here, so you got the fruits start to come to play a little bit here. We got a spiced summer fruit soup, chilled berry soup, strawberry colada soup, chilled cantaloupe soup, minted peach soup. Oh, all these sound so yummy. Melon medley soup, and now vanilla fruit cup soup. So, what's the vanilla fruit cup soup?
Let's see, vanilla fruit cup soup. I was going, while I'm looking for it, I will just say that, yeah, this one doesn't have a picture. So the base is vanilla vegan yogurt, so it's really kind of fruity and crispy at the
Oh.
same time. And I would say that the fruit soups can easily be served as a dessert
Mm-hmm.
or an appetizer. I've done both. And either way, some people, again, they're not there for it, but they taste it and they say, maybe there is something to it."
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Oh, I love
really
it.
very refreshing. And sometimes, again, when you have too much of something like berries, or sometimes when you have an overripe cantaloupe. These are perfect things to make with those kind of summer produce.
Yeah, and we've got a farmer's market here in Chicago that's just a few blocks away from us every Wednesday in the summer. And now I'm like, oh, I'm going to open this chapter up in the summer and I'm just going to hit that farmer's market and go wild and just make a new soup every week, maybe.
Oh, I love farmers markets, and we have in our area, about a half hour from where I live, a winter indoor farmers market.
Ah, nice.
During the winter, they have I'm always surprised. They have, of course, a lot of roots, which I absolutely love, and still a lot of greens, which
Great.
some of them thrive in cold weather, and sprouts. So what
Love
could
it.
be bad? I think I'm going to go this Saturday now that I'm thinking
Nice.
about it. Yeah.
Oh, so good. Well, listeners, this is your sign to get out to your farmer's market and make some soup. And that is Vegan Soups and Stews for All Seasons by the wonderful, as always, Nava Atlas. And Nava, what is your book brag? What's something you're most proud of when it comes to this book?
Of this particular book?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think it's longevity.
Yeah.
And the weird story behind it. First of all, I self-published it, I think in 1992, because every publisher, and I did have an agent already at that time, said it's too niche. And it was
Mm-hmm.
vegetarian, let
Yep.
alone, it wasn't vegan yet. Vegetarian soups, too niche. So I self-published it. It did very, self-publishing was also much, everything was easier back in the
Yeah.
90s.
Sure. Yeah.
It did very well. And then Little Brown picked it up. Then it went out of print because I think my editor moved to another place. So then I self-published it again, and then she picked it up again at Random House, and then it went out of print after a few years. And then, so I would say the longevity and kind of the classic nature of a book of vegan soups. And then another book brag with this particular edition is that somebody in my community wanted to buy it from me so I could sign it for her. And then she volunteers for a soup kitchen, or I don't know if it's called a soup kitchen, or a place where they make soup for people who can't leave their houses. So she said they made the mellow sweet potato soup, but without the embellishments on top. And she said she showed me, she printed it out because it's also on my website, times 12. So they took my recipe, uh, increase it a dozen times, and they deliver it to people. She said
Mm.
they never had something that was such a big hit.
Oh, I love that.
Called them and emailed them and said they felt so nourished by the soup. They didn't care if it was vegetarian, vegan, whatever.
Yeah, it was just
Vegan,
delicious.
that it felt so warming and nourishing for them. So that made me feel really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. I love that. That's great. Hopefully they take some more out of the book then and they keep it rolling along. That's
I hope
fantastic.
so. Well, yeah, she said they were planning to make others. I don't know which. It's not somebody I really know. We met in
Sure.
town, so I could give her signed books. And she told me that story and showed me
I
the
love it.
printout and how she calculated how many ingredients they need.
Scaled it up. They
Yeah,
did it.
it was pretty cool. Like, it made it feel like it's just going beyond the home kitchen to
Yeah,
people who really need it.
absolutely. That's great. That's a wonderful book brag. That takes us into your rapid fire round of questioning. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. Number one. What's your favorite kind of muffin?
Oh, my favorite kind of muffin is an apple muffin.
Mm. And most used emoji?
Hearts, the pink ones that are
Mm.
two hearts.
Oh, nice. Favorite kind of pasta?
Oh, angel hair.
Me too. And have you ever been told you look like someone famous and who?
Yes. When Dirty Dancing came out, people told me I looked like Babe,
Yes,
and I
I
was like,
see it.
nobody puts Baby in a corner.
That's right. That's right. Oh, that's a good one. Is there a food or ingredient you used to dislike that now you love?
Oh, wow. I can't think of any offhand, but maybe going back to this book, I have a rice and okra soup. I'm not super fond of okra, but I like it in the soup because then it becomes like a gumbo, and it does
Mm-hmm.
work. And that
Yeah.
kind of slimy consistency dissipates.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I
That
wouldn't go
makes
straight
sense.
to that I love it now, but I like it.
Yeah. You have found a place where you enjoy it.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Do you
Yeah.
have a favorite tradition or holiday?
Yes, we do. We're really just cultural Jews, but we like the food, and I love the fact that I've been able to veganize. I really look forward to Passover because it's a holiday about freedom, and I really like the Jewish New Year, which is in the early fall, where you're celebrating the harvest. And I like the fact that all of these dishes can be veganized also.
I love it. And what did you bake last?
What did I bake? The pumpkin brittle that we talked about at the beginning of the program, so we were able to make a full loop.
Yep. That's great. That's a good one because we need to be reminded about it because we all need to try it. What is your favorite way to season popcorn?
Nutritional yeast and a little bit of vegan butter.
Very
I don't
good.
eat it that
And
often, but I like it that way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you prefer sunrise or sunset?
Oh, sunrise.
Okay.
I like
And
the day.
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Books or audiobooks?
I'm equally both, and I am a huge reader. I'm a huge reader of both. Sometimes
Okay.
I actually read the book while listening to it because I feel like when you're taking a book in two different senses, it actually impacts the brain even better, and you
Okay.
remember more of it. I did that with James, which came out last year by, of course, I'm gonna blank on the author. You know, he won the Pulitzer Prize for it. It's the one that is the retelling of Huckleberry Finn.
Okay.
It's such a good book. Everybody
I
should read that.
was gonna say I haven't heard. I'll have to look it up though.
Yeah.
What is your cell phone wallpaper?
I don't remember. I don't know. I think I just whatever Apple gave me. It's like
Okay.
raindrops on a or water drops
There
make
you
it
go.
makes it look like you dropped it in a body of water. It's not very interesting. But my laptop background is much more interesting. It's a photo that I took when I was in Reykjavik, Iceland I believe it was around December 2022 when the sun sets at 2:30.
Wow.
So I took a picture by the pond there with all these birds standing on the frozen pond, and I still have that in the background. And I would say I love Reykjavik, Iceland so much. I think it's one of
Cool.
my favorite places on earth.
Oh, awesome. All
Yeah.
right.
Very vegan
You're
friendly also.
what's that?
Very vegan friendly.
I love that. I love
Oh, you
hearing
should do
that.
you still do vegan roadie or not anymore?
No, not anymore, but you never
If you
know.
ever wanted to reconstitute it, you can go
Yeah.
to Reykjavik, you'll love it.
And your last question here is, do you like to dance? And if you do you consider yourself a good dancer?
I like to dance, I'm not a good dancer. Sometimes I've fantasized about actually taking some lessons.
Ooh, what
So, yeah,
kind would you take?
just somewhere where I wouldn't feel so awkward just moving around. But I
Okay.
don't know, maybe salsa?
Okay. Oh,
Salsa looks
fun. All right.
looks
Well, that's
yeah,
your
you
rapid fire. You did
okay,
very well. Yeah.
okay,
And now we got to find you those dance lessons, maybe
okay.
some salsa classes for
Yeah,
you.
I think they have them around here.
All right. All right. Well, Nava, please tell everyone where they can find you on social media and the internet.
Okay. So if you go to either of my websites, if you go to theveganatlas.com, there's a not a pop-up, but a spotlight subscribe field, and you'll be getting then my Substack, which I've really been having a lot of fun with. And same with Literary Ladies Guide. So literaryladiesguide.com. I am on Facebook. I don't love it. I do pop in there a few times a week.
Sure.
Let's see. So it's the Vegan Atlas on Facebook and the Literary Ladies Guide on Facebook. NavaAtlasArt.com shows you another side of me. If you know what, just Google my name, Nava
Yeah.
Atlas. There aren't any more of anybody else with that name as far as I know.
Yeah.
You'll find me.
Find everything we want. That's
Yeah.
good. Well, and everyone, you must go get yourself a copy of Vegan Soups and Stews for All Seasons. Right now, it's available everywhere books are sold. And Nava, I appreciate you being here. I always love spending time with you, and I appreciate you sharing some stories behind the recipes with
Oh,
us.
likewise. I love talking to you.
Thank you so much for listening. We'd be so grateful if you would rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. It really does help us.
Yes, thank you so much. And don't forget to check out keeponcooking.com for all of the latest in recipes and Keep On Cooking updates. This has been a Muzzy Cat production.